You mean you went through all that turmoil, all those challenges, all that sacrifice to go back to who you used to be? All right. Welcome to another episode of Mindset Mastery. I'm your host, Araujo. And I got inspired today by a conversation we've been talking about this weekend. And even Carla went up this morning on her group, on her DTW group, and talked about transitioning and the difference between changing and transitioning. And, I read a quote that I wrote a while back, and it said, "What keeps me going? Remembering how things used to be, never again." What keeps me going? Remembering how things used to be, never again. And I emphasize never again in all caps with a couple exclamation points. And it's not because I want to do certain things. It's not that every day I want to get up early. It's not every day that I want to work on my business and just be more aware of my actions. It's just I never, ever want to go to that place again, because I understand how much hurt I brought to my family, how much hurt I brought to myself, how much doubt. And I was really just seated in this area of depression, right? Depression and sorrow. And I didn't like being there. And all I wanted was change, right? Have you ever been in that situation? All you want is just change. You want to change. And that was something that was always on my mind. But it seemed like anytime I changed, I always reverted back. The change wasn't sustainable. The change was just almost like a quick fix. And I would tell Carla, I was like, I'll change. I promise I'll change. A couple of weeks go by and I was doing the same exact thing. And some of you may be struggling with the change with your body, right? Where you commit to certain things and you completely change your body, but then you revert right back to where you were at. In fact, it gets even worse. Your habits just unleash themselves, and dysfunctions just unleash themselves upon you, and things get worse. And there's always this change, right? This change of money. And some of you weren't used to making the kind of money you're making now, and you wanted to change, and all of a sudden things are getting really tough. And you're even considering, maybe it's time to go back to work, or maybe I should just adjust my income or my spending habits so that I can, fall within the lines of what my current income is, right? And again, it's this change. And what I realized is that change was always external. Change was always temporary, right? And this conversation really just sparked my mind, and I'm going to dig into this deeper and deeper along the weeks, just as I start understanding these concepts more and more. But it's just a huge revelation, and that's why I wanted to share this with you. Because when I say something never again, that means I will never become that person ever again. It's no longer existent. That person has died. That person is non-existent, right? And there's this parallel of who I used to be to who I am today. It's not that I changed. I transitioned to someone more powerful. I transitioned to someone that will never become this other person. When you change, it's just an external process. When you change, there's always that possibility that you'll revert back to that person you were before. Because all you were looking for was change. Change of how your body looked, change on how your finances were, change on how your marriage was. And I would always go through the change again, but it was always temporary because I never really transitioned to this new person. And a transitioning process requires many, many reps. It takes years. But it's with this mindset that you'll never revert back. Reverting back means it's only temporary. Your change was temporary. Your word was temporary. Your truth was temporary. A transition means never again. Just like when I left my job in 2004, I said never again, and I meant it. I transitioned to a business owner, and I meant it. Never again to be in a position that I was at before. And then I transitioned to a lifestyle that I said, never again will I struggle financially. And I meant it. And as the market now changes, many of you are going to change with it, unfortunately, because you never transitioned to the real business owner, the real marketer, the real type of business owner that you needed to become. It was just change. It changed your finances. It changed your lifestyle temporarily. Now you're like, oh shit. Should I cut my cable bill? Oh no. Hey, family, let's turn off the lights. Make sure no lights are on during the day. I'll go ahead and increase the AC to 85. I've been there, right? So that my bills will come in lower because I haven't fully embraced the transition of becoming a real business owner with marketing, sales, and systems. It was just a change to my income. It was external. It was never internal. When it's internal, it means it's never going back. When it's external, you allow that to be an option. So everything becomes an option. Your marketing becomes an option. Following up with your clients becomes an option. Marketing becomes an option. Systems become an option. It was never a real transition. I'm being invited to go speak at a conference this week. It's going to be thousands of people on it. And I'm fired up. And there's going to be a lot of heavy hitters there. I'm talking about 10 million plus earners, 20 million plus earners. Earners, like income. And here I am. It's like, I'm fired up, but part of me is like, do I even belong on this stage? But as I look at my life, of the transitions that I've made in my marriage, of the transitions I made with the bond with my daughters, the relationships I have with my daughters, the transitions I've made with my businesses, hell yeah, I belong on that stage. Because it wasn't a temporary change. It was a complete transformation of who I was to who I've become. It wasn't temporary. I'm not building and burning down. I'm building and progressing. Because I understand that this is the new standard. There is no going back. There is no picking up bad habits. I stay the course with who I've become. And some people want to change quickly. And I get it. Modern technology has allowed that. But that doesn't mean it changes it fixes your dysfunctions, your habits. Just like those that go under the knife to get the quick fix. It's a temporary external change. But no real capacity has been built of the new person. The reps is a conditioning process. But it's not temporary. And you can't look at what you're building as temporary. And right now, as the market changes, because markets, again, they change, because it is temporary. It's not a full transition. The market's not going to be in the gutter all the time. You have to continue on the path of transitioning to the business owner that understands there's always solutions to problems, regardless of the market, regardless of the obstacles or problems. When you transition, you just figure it out because you know there is no going back. Never again. You got to understand who you truly are and what you truly want. If it's a change, hey, listen, I want to change this to my finances. Always temporary. I want to change to my bad habits, the way I spoke to my family. Always temporary. Until I went on this journey of a transition phase. And the transition phases just keep coming. Because it's an improvement of who you were, but never just a temporary change. It means it's who you are. And some just bounce right back and forth. They progress, and then they regress. Temporary. They make the changes, and then they go back. They're on fire one day and can't pay the bills the next. Because all they were looking for was externally. To shut down the temporary pain. As opposed to weathering the storm. Now, I've signed up for Carla's new DTW challenge. And it's been an eye-opener for me. And it really allows me to appreciate the journey I'm on. And it's because I've been on this path of progression. Progression means a constant movement towards a goal, right? And for me, I've explained this before, where there's 3 levels, right? There's progression, and I'm just going to read you a definition of progression: a movement to an improved or developed state. A movement to an improved or developed state. To move over time to a stronger, more advanced, or more desirable state. And then below that, when you progress, there's some digression. Digression is to lose clarity, to deviate or wander away from the main topic or purpose, which means to deviate from the progression, to get off course, sidetrack or straggle, or like Jermaine says it in the morning, right? When we're holding back on our, like this morning we were doing some curls, and he says, and then we put more weight on. Hey, you've been hot dogging it. Been holding back, hot dogging. I never heard that until you said it. Now we use it all the time, hot dogging it. But that's digression, right? To lose clarity, to kind of wander off the path. And then there's the regression. To return to a former. What a shame, right? To return to a former or less developed state. To return to a previous and less advanced or worse state, condition, or way of behaving. And there's always lessons in different aspects of our life, in finances, in business, in family, with our bodies. And like the old saying goes, how you do one thing is how you do all things. And really, we have to be able to see where we're currently at, to peel back the layers of all the false truths we're spewing out there and look at the facts. And some of you have to just look in the mirror and say you haven't changed shit. You haven't really transitioned to the person you should have been or the person you claim to be. It was a temporary change. The key is to never regress. Not regressing it's hard. It's not easy. It takes discipline, intention, focus. But regressing is embracing who you were. And not fully embracing who you could become. And if you're this challenge made me really appreciate, again, like I'm on this path of progression. And even though from time to time I will digress, and digress is just to lose a little bit of clarity, wander away from the course, but it's never to regress. I won't deviate from where I'm at. I'll never regress. I'll never go back to my old dysfunctional habits and patterns. Do I step away? Absolutely. But that's where you have to look at your patterns, your own behaviors. In order to survive the changing markets, you got to understand there is no going back to who you used to be. Scarce. Living in a scarcity mindset. I've been there. And you don't want to go back. So when you look at your progression, it can't be temporary. It's got to be the new standard. It's got to be the transition of who you've become. And yes, none of us are perfect. None of us ever will be. Digressing is okay. Digressing from time to time is okay. But regressing, you're letting a lot of people down, including yourself. Just think about where your mind is at when you regress, when you can't pay the bills, when you're 30 pounds overweight, when you were 30 pounds lighter just 6 months ago. Think about the type of mindset you have. Think about the frustration you have, not only with yourself, but all of a sudden you become more impatient with your family, more impatient with your clients because of your regression, the temporary change. And we've seen this with challenges before, the do the work challenge. People feeling on fire, business is changing. There's more purpose. But because it was only an external change, it was temporary. I'm telling you now, whatever challenges you put in front of you, can you transition and become that greater person, that greater businessman, that healthier person, that person on fire, that lives with purpose and passion, that influences others to live with purpose and passion? Or was it all temporary? All a farce? Are people whispering, oh yeah. Oh, he's going to do that challenge again. She's going to do that thing, but just watch. Just wait 30 more days, and then she'll forget all about it. It's good for her, though. It's awesome because it keeps her focused for so long, and then she'll go back out. Then she'll start drinking with us again. Then he'll start having Sunday breakfast with us again. So they applaud you because they know it's only temporary. And these are and somehow we expect to always be applauded. And then there's expectations. Like I used to expect Carla just to support everything that I did, but it was a temporary change. How could she? She couldn't trust me because I never fully transitioned to the new being. That person that I was is non-existent. In fact, we'll bring that up in conversations. Carla and I will bring up our past, and I was like, yeah, F that dude. He was a jerk. He was undependable. He was a hothead. Because that's no longer me. It's like talking about someone completely different. Yet there are some other, can we start? Yet there are some other relationships where they'll bring something from 10 years ago and they still get as heated as they did 10 years ago because no transitions happened. They're still the same person. So this is the type of things we have to look at now. Quit reverting. No, there's no more reverting. You can't regress. Because we're human, we can digress a bit. But understand that that is completely dysfunctional. For you not to supply for your family. For you not to take care of yourself. That's dysfunction. There's no other way to say it. Stop putting yourself in that place. Understand that you must embrace the transitional process. It can't be just temporary. Quit wishing you just had more money. Quit wishing you just had more business. Quit wishing you lost another 20 pounds. Become that person and stay there. And make the power statement. Remembering how things used to be should be the driver. Never again. I don't care how bad it gets. I will never become that person. I built the skill set. I built the standard of who I must become. Just like when I decided early on to become a business owner. I will do everything to make sure I stay there. And not only to barely pay the bills, but to prosper exponentially. The decision when I left my corporate job was a decision I will never go back. And it just started with the vision. It started with this process of progression to constantly just develop and improve myself. Not develop and improve myself temporarily, but to become that person moving forward, period. So now that I'm going into this conference, I start looking back in the last 9 years, right? 9 years in 2014 of who I was, who this business was, who I was as a husband, as a father, where my mind was at mentally. And I fast forward 9 years to 2022, 8 years. 8 years, 8 short years, oh my God. And my life is radically different. My mindset, my emotional state, my psychological state, everything, my physical state, everything about me is different. It's not even an option to go all the way back to who I was. I've been too far. I've gone through many things. But yet that is forgotten. What you've been through is forgotten when you regress. That's why I say it's a shame. You mean you went through all that turmoil, all those challenges, all that sacrifice to go back to who you used to be? Let's start talking in truths. It's not meant to beat you up. It's meant to build you up. Stop doing that. Set the standard for yourself. If you could do it for 30 days, you can do it for 60 days. If you can do it for 60 days, you could do it for 9 years. And that's all I've ever done. So as I start questioning, do I belong? Absolutely. Because it was a full transition. My life has magnified. Because of a simple statement, never again. I've been there before. I don't want that. I don't want my family to go through that. Never again. And many people forget about the pains they were in. And then all of a sudden, they forget about how good things could be. That's where appreciation comes in. When you work, it's like appreciate what you've built. So you can understand there's always a flip side to that. And that's how things used to be. I get up because I remember. I get up because change wasn't enough. It needs to become a transition. And with the transition, it's never easy because you have to get up and do it over. and over again, only to do it over and over again. And it sucks. But I wouldn't trade my life for the world. I love what I built. And when you're in this place of a progression, it never ends. The challenges get bigger. The problems get bigger. But so do my solutions. So just think about that, okay? Change is just to exchange one thing for another, but it's temporary. Don't ask for change. Embrace the path of transitioning, which is the process or a period of changing from one state or condition to another. Like a butterfly can never become a caterpillar ever again. Never could they regress from just hanging on the limb of a tree. They're flying, they're discovering, they've transitioned. So again, don't just go into these challenges. Don't just go into your business looking for a change of your current situation. Who do you have to become? And I've become someone that I thought I could never be. It's amazing when you just keep going. It's amazing what happens when you just stay the course, because that's all I've ever done. And it seems like my life is just magnified. And I'm going to share that same message with thousands of other men that were in the same place I was not too long ago. That was just in this world of pain and hurt. That was lost. That couldn't be trusted. I doubted myself, and so did others. And I would change temporarily, and then I would go back. I would stop the bad habits, only to dive right back into them. Never again. You're not looking for change, you're looking for a transition. For those of you on this challenge, I pray for you that you stay there, because I know the powerful person that's within. I know the powerful person that emerges. And all you business owners, all of you, everyone here on this call, I pray for your transition, because I understand the amount of pressure and responsibility that lies upon you. No more change. It's got to be ever growing. It's got to be a transition. So I want to hear what you have to say, but I hope that made sense, and I'm going to dive into it a little more, because this was a conversation Carla and I had, and I've just been piggybacking off of what she mentioned as well in the group, and it just hit me to the core, and it really just made me embrace my journey. And if I didn't transition, I would not have all of you in my life today. I would not have the lifestyle today. I wouldn't have the relationships I have with my daughters today. There was a lot riding on me, and I'm glad I rose up to that responsibility. And it's the same calling you have. You can't hold back. You got to show up powerfully. You have eyes looking at you. You just can't be hot one minute and cold the next. Your kids will know this. Your spouse will know this. Make it permanent. Make it a transition. And your transition will ultimately affect generations after you. And it goes way beyond just the money. Listen, it's not about the money. It's about the dysfunctional behaviors that you need to stop. It's about the things that go on beyond money, just health. We talk a lot about that, because that's where a lot of businesses will either flourish or die. The health of your mind, the health of your physique. Stress is a real evil. Stress. Imagine if you're stressed out and you're not healthy. and your marriage is not going the way it should, and your kids don't even want to talk to you. Imagine that. Now that's a hard battle to fight. But let's say there's a transition, there's a change in business, but you've been doing everything right for your body and your mind. You've been doing everything right for your family. Guess what? That temporary change in the business will be just that. Temporary. It doesn't linger because everything else is functioning. You feel good. Your mind is good. There's a lot riding at stake here. And I've been through this story before. And what I appreciate is I'm not in the same place I was before. And I was hearing some stories, and it reminded me a lot of where I was at when the market shifted back in 2007, 2008. I was talking to one of our agents, and he said, there was this agent that he was trying to negotiate a deal for his clients for, and he was like, hey, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm bleeding. I have 7 properties. I can't get rid of them. I'm making payments on these homes, and I've lowered the payment, and I just can't carry these anymore. He was willing to do anything and everything to make a deal happen because his part was just change, right? He wanted his income to change. So he over-leveraged himself as opposed to transitioning to becoming a real investor, someone who could withstand something long-term. Let's not look for the temporary change. That's who I was. I got caught with multiple properties. I had to foreclose. My credit was shot for years because I just wanted that quick change to my finances instead of building the real skill sets, the real systems that I needed to sustain long term. So I learned that. So this time around, guess what I did? I built all that. I built a real business. I built consistency. I built drive. So guys, I want to thank you for joining me for this episode of Mindset Mastery. And I'm going to read a few comments here. And I hope that you got that whole concept of a transitional phase and a change. Change is always temporary. It's always external. A transition is internal here. Understanding that that's who you are moving forward, no matter what. No matter what. And understand that there's different levels, right? There's the progression state where you just continue to develop and grow and expand. And then there's the digression where things are not moving as fast because you stop doing the things that worked. But digression is temporary. It's like you can always go back to the progression state. But many go all the way back to regression, which is to return to who you were, your former self. And what a shame that would be to go through all that just to return. I hope you got these concepts. Write them down. Think about it. Rewatch this. I implore you to do that. And I'm fired up. I can't wait to be on stage. I can't wait to share my story, my journey. And trust me, there was a lot of dysfunctions that I had to break. There's a lot of transition. The transitional process wasn't easy for me. It was ingrained in me. The old version of me, the old habits of me. So I understand what you're going through, but I had a conviction within that it was never again. Never again. That's the importance of this tribe here at A's and Associates. The environment makes it that much harder to regress. And when you do, it's shorter. Yes. And there's this process of forgiveness, right? But you just can't keep forgiving yourself. I get it. Okay. Begin again. I get it. But what if you never stopped? What would that life look like? So yes, we have to forgive. Yes, we have to begin again. But just imagine a life if you never stopped. It becomes amazing. Self-improvement never ends. Absolutely, Ricardo. It's a self-awareness, right? It's like a self-development brokerage here. A butterfly can never become a caterpillar ever again. Absolutely, Natasha. definitely received the entire concept of change and transition. I'm glad you did, and I appreciate you, Carla, for sharing that with me. It just really inspired me to come in, and I wasn't clear on exactly how I was going to, pass this on to you, but I hope that it did in the way that I intended to. So guys, you know what to do. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Mindset Mastery, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Badass Agents Podcast, brought to you by AZ & Associates and Do the Work Coaching and Consulting. You can watch this and other episodes by subscribing to our channel on YouTube or by visiting us directly at badassagents.com. And of course, you can listen to this episode and many others on your preferred podcast provider.